Make a pot for your succulent using the pinch pot technique. Cactus Pots Project 1. Step 5. Joining. Being creative. So in step 3, left you with a pinch pot like this that was freshly made, and then we popped that in the oven to dry it up a little bit so that we could move on to the next stage of decorating the pot. This one here hasn't been in the oven yet, so in this video we will be working with a freshly made pinch pot. What I'm going to be doing is just having a bit of fun with joining and being creative. So this is a little succulent pot which has been inspired by Despicable Me, one of the minions in that. So I'll show you how to attach all these bits so that they don't fall off in this video. This is the pot from video number 4, which has a little tripod feet. So the technique that we will be using, the score and slip technique for this video, will be the same one as used in the last video. We just the only difference being here is that we're joining onto the side of the wall. So I'm going to show you that. And the other thing I will show you is how to use coils, how to make coils, and also how to revive clay, because sometimes when you're making all these little bits, you will find that they start to dry up, and I'll show you a nice trick in how to revive them so that they don't crack while you're applying them. Okay, so I've got my freshly made pinch pot, which is very fragile. It feels like jelly in my hands. It hasn't been in the oven. And I'm just going to put it out of the way for a moment so to keep it safe. And these are all the little bits, like little examples of things that you could do to it. These are the feet and the goggles for the minion. This is a little moustache. So I encourage you here, be as creative as possible in creating fun things. This is some little eyeballs. So you could do eyeballs. This guy's got 3. You could also do something like ears. Give him some ears. I think that one actually goes that way. No, it's this side. There we go. That's his ear there. One ear, and that's the other one on the other side. So you have a little face. Here I've made, using a coil, a little tentacle. Okay, so I can, if I make 7 more of these, I can have an octopus. Okay, so I'll get these out of the way and I'll show you how to make those. Now, of course, if you've been working with Play-Doh or plasticine and so forth, or air drying clay, then you'll know all about how to make all these bits and pieces. And as I said, the most important part that you can get out of this video is how to join it all on properly and so that it doesn't fall off later. This is the difference between this kind of clay, the foreign clay, and other things like plasticine and Play-Doh and so forth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab my clay pack. Now, as I've been working, I've been cutting off bits, and now there's a few bits here that might attach and might not. These have come off easily. I might keep one of these aside for later. And when you're making the coils, it's a really good idea not to use something which is made of lots of little scrunched up bits of clay, but to use a solid bit. So if you don't have a solid bit that just comes off like that, then what you want to do is slice any of the sort of raggedy bits off and just use a fresh bit of clay. So slice a fresh bit off the top of your clay pack, and with the rest, pop that away into the plastic to make sure that it doesn't dry out on you. Okay, so I'm going to pop this away. Okay, so firstly, I'm going to make a coil. out of this fresh bit of clay. So slice through and start with a fairly long rectangular bit like that, and then roll it between your palms like so to start making it round. Okay, so now we're starting with a sausage. It might be a bit lumpy because of the shape of my palms there as I've been rolling it like so. So to make it nice and even, what we do is we start to roll it on the board. So you want plenty of space and you want to do nice long rolls. So put your fingers on there and roll all the way to the end and then roll back. Sometimes you might need 2 hands. Roll all the way to the end and then roll back. Okay, the longer the roll, the better. Here what I'm doing is my hands are moving apart from each other, which is stretching the coil out. Okay, now as you can see in my coil, because the clay is a tiny bit dry, there are a few kind of little cracks appearing. Now if you want to make this a little bit wetter, what you can do is use one of these terry cloths if you have these at home, or if you have another one of these, like this is just a pillowcase that has been cut up. So if you just sacrifice a bit of a pillowcase, what you do is you put the cloth or a bit of pillowcase in here, in your water, wring it out. So here, making sure that all the water is squeezed out of it and that none is dripping on your hand. So just shake off any drips. Okay, so now it's just damp. It's not wet. And then spread it out, put your coil in there and wrap it up in the paper. And if you put it in the cloth, if you put it in the cloth for a little while, or in the material, damp material like that, what will happen is the clay will start to absorb some of the water there and it will come out a little bit refreshed, okay, without getting lots of water splashing everywhere. Okay, so that is a good trick to know. And also if you're making lots of little bits and you want to keep them damp for later, you just wrap them up in this and they will stay in there and they will stay nice and damp until you need them. Okay, so I'm going to firstly make the legs for my minion. So what I want to do here is cut a bit off and then just decide how long I want the leg to be. It's going to be the leg plus the foot, and on this side put them together, cut the same size. Okay, and now you can start to shape it. So you can shape the foot just by bending it upwards, squash it with your fingers, smooth out any bits that are looking like they've got little cracks or texture on them, and it's just like working with Play-Doh or plasticine as I see it. Okay, and the good thing here is that it's made out of one piece, so the foot itself won't fall off. It'll just be the one join, which will be this bit. Okay, so we've got the foot here. You can also, if you want, use the skewer to do little details to tidy it up a little bit. And your finger there, just to make this bit flat. It needs to be nice and flat so it can join onto the body, onto the pinch pot. So that's a foot. Now, if I want to do the goggles, what I will do is just take a slice out of this and squash it in my fingers and kind of roll it around until it becomes the right sort of shape for the goggles. Okay, and you guessed it, like with eyeballs for instance, you can cut off a little bit like this, roll it with your fingers on your palm. Okay, the smaller bit of clay will make a smaller eyeball, and here I just make a hole with the skewer to make the iris. Okay, so that's an eyeball, and here for an ear again, just take a slice and squash it. Make sure there's a little flat bit on the end where the ear will join onto the head. Okay, so there we go. It's a bit of an ear. All right. Now, if you want to make something like a moustache, which is thinner coils, then you will need to roll the coil a bit thinner. Use your fingertips and just roll as far as you can, like so, stretching it out. And then again, you probably want 2 bits of moustache, which are the same length. So cut them here with the wooden knife, and then you can shape it to the shape that you like. So if you're noticing lots of cracking happening, then it's a good idea to just pop it in a damp cloth for a little bit so that it revives, and then you can smooth out the cracks. Okay, so that's me doing the moustache. Okay, so now I'll get on to attaching the bits and bobs. Oh, there was a tentacle as well, so I think the tentacle was kind of made by doing this kind of shape, although it's probably better to make the tentacle out of the thicker coil, because because when you have lots of little skinny bits that are attached and sort of coming away from the clay like that, when it dries, these bits will become very, very brittle, and so if you're transporting it to the studio for firing, they might crack and break off, and there's really nothing we can do at that stage to reattach them, apart from, maybe you could glue them back on at home. But it's a good idea to make things as robust as possible. So here I'm making a larger coil. Okay, because it's a tentacle, I'm going to give it a slightly pointier end. Okay, you can put a little bit of water on it with your sponge if you want. So here I'm sponging it, but with the sponge, again, it's like the cloth. Make sure that you squeeze it out really, really well so that there's no drips, and shake your hand so it's not dripping, and then put the water on it very gently. You don't want to get carried away with too much water. If you start putting lots of water on this, it will become really messy and really slippery and hard to handle. Make sure you dry your hands as well after you've had your hands in water, so that you can handle the clay with confidence. So here I can now bend the tentacle into the shape I want it. Okay, and you can see it doesn't crack. So there we go, that's my tentacle. So now I'm going to join on the legs. So to join on the legs for my minion, they're going to, firstly I need to decide where they're going to go. So it might be a bit hard to see from the top, but I'm just going to place them up against my pinch pot, like so. Okay, and I'm going to make a little mark roughly where they are so I can show you. I'll just show the camera, tip it upwards so you can see. Okay, like so. So that's where one of the legs will go, and as you see, I'm holding the pot from the inside. Okay, and now I'm going to just position that leg, and here, so you can do this while sitting down, so you don't need to hold it up in the air in your hand. I'm going to draw a very light mark around where the leg will be, like so, so that when you remove it, you can see that that is where it will join on. Now, to make sure that the join's a really good one, support the pot on the inside with your hand. So here you can see my fingers are exactly where that leg will join on, and score. So this is called score and slip. So you go cross-stitching one way, cross-stitching other way, just making quite fine lines. You can see what's happening there. Okay, and then on the leg that I'm going to join, on the flat end, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so I draw fine lines on one side and then cross thatching, so going the opposite direction. There you go, and that roughs up the surface so it gives it a good key. Next I'm going to make some slip. So for this you can use scraps of clay if you want, and you just squish them together, so all the bits that you didn't need, squish them together, roll them in your palms, make a ball, and then stick your thumb in the middle. Okay, so that makes like a very rough pinch pot little bowl with an indent in it. Now get your stiff bristle brush and pop water inside the bowl like so, and start swirling around. And as you swirl the water around, what will happen is that the water will mingle with the clay and create slip. So this will look kind of like cream, okay, or like icing. And you grab it on your brush and then kind of like let it slide off onto the leg. Now you need a lot on here, and it's just on one surface. You don't need to put it on the pinch pot itself, just on the bit that you're joining. Okay, grab your pinch pot, make sure you've got your hand in there, that you're supporting it so it doesn't collapse when you go and push that leg up against the wall of the pinch pot. So if you don't have your hand in there, what will happen is this wall will bend inwards and your pinch pot will ruin. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you're supporting it from the inside with your hand. Okay, another good way of supporting it sometimes is to use the paper, so the kitchen paper. So here I will need 3 squares of kitchen paper, scrunch it up, put it in there, put it in the pinch pot. So sometimes the paper will help you hold the shape of the pinch pot. So here if I'm pressing down on the paper, that will support the wall on the pinch pot there, just as long as you've got enough paper in there. Okay, so now you've got the slip all gushing out around the outside. This is what you want. Okay, and if it isn't gushing out, that means you haven't put enough on, and the leg might drop off later. So you've got to make sure that there's so much that gushes out the sides when you've applied it. And now I grab my big sponge and I'm going to wipe the brush off on the sponge and go around like so. Now I'm removing the excess slip, but what I'm doing is I'm also pushing it into the join. So I'm pushing it where the leg joins onto the wall of the pinch pot. And I've got my hand here so that I'm pushing down on the paper so that the pinch pot doesn't distort as I'm doing this. Okay, so here we go. Right, so that's one leg joined on, and sit it on the table. Make sure it's going to be okay that way. All right, and now if I want to, so I would join the second leg on there, and you know how to do that now. And if I want to do eyeballs for the minion, or his goggles, I guess, you would do the same kind of, put them in position so that you know about where they're going to go. Okay, so say mine are going to be like this, and you see like it kind of holds on now, but if you don't join it using that technique where we were doing the cross thatching, the slip and score, then later on when the clay dries a little bit, these will just drop off. There's nothing holding them on there. The slip acts as a glue. So this is my one eyeball. I'm going to hold it with my finger here and draw around where it goes. Okay, and then score here. And you see I've got my hand in there and I'm supporting it. Or use the paper, push on the paper to make sure that the wall doesn't bend inwards as you do this. Okay, so here doing the scoring. Okay, and then I do that on one side of the goggles So, like so. Here we go. Cross stitching, going one way and then the other way. Then using water inside this little ball of clay, collect up some slip, put it on the eyeball or on the goggles. Just make sure that you've got plenty on there so that it will squish out around the edges when you go to join this on. And then your pinch pot, again, you don't need to be picking this up. I'm just doing this for the camera. You can do it with it sitting on the table. Squish it on. So it's really important that you do push it. Here I'm supporting with my finger where I'm pushing. And then the clay, the slip gushes out around the edges, and wipe off your brush and then go around, removing all the slip and making sure it goes well into the join. Okay, so this is the technique. I'll let you carry on with joining all the bits and bobs. Okay, make sure that everything is first scored and then slipped, and then you remove the slip from the outside. Okay, and when it's all ready, you can pop it in the oven. Okay, to let it dry out a little bit before we continue on with the last stage, the finishing stage, and then it'll be ready to decorate. So I think I covered this in the other videos, how to pop it in the oven. So with this guy, because he's got limbs, what you might want to do is start by popping him in the oven this way so that these bits don't droop. So just sit it on the oven tray on your baking paper and pop him in here this way for about 10 minutes. And then once the 10 minutes is up, he should be firm enough to actually flip over the other way and do another 5 minutes and test him to see if he's ready. He might need 10 minutes. Be careful these don't dry out too much. Okay. Now we only use the oven because this is for you if you would like to do this project all in one day and have it ready quite quickly. But if you have patience and you prefer to do it over a couple of days, what you can do is just leave them sitting out in a warm room, in a warm space, and they will go to leather hard to the right stage overnight. So that is a way of getting around having to use the oven. Also, if you have lots of little thin bits that stick out, they will often dry first on the ends, on the thinnest ends. And one way to get around this getting too dry is to use cling film. So don't do this if you're putting the piece in the oven, but if you are leaving it out overnight, you can get cling film and just wrap it, like if your piece has tentacles or something that sticks out a long way, then just wrap it like that, right, when you leave it. And that will protect these sticky out bits from getting too dry too quickly. Okay, thanks. See you in the next video, in which I will show you how to test whether your piece is ready for the next stage. Okay, thanks, bye.